My name is Alexis, and I am 27 years old. My sister, Emily, always wanted what I had. It started small when we were kids, the same toys, the same clothes, even the same friends. But as we got older, it became exhausting. Every time I achieved something, she somehow found a way to take it, twist it, or make it hers. So when she started getting close with my fiancé, Liam, I wasn't surprised. I was just tired. Tired of pretending not to notice the looks they shared, the secret smiles, the way she laughed too loudly at his jokes. Growing up, Emily was always the golden child. She had that effortless charm that made people fall in love with her, teachers, neighbors, even strangers. She could get away with anything just by flashing a smile or tilting her head in that sweet, innocent way she'd perfected. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one, responsible, organized, the one who made lists and plans and tried to keep everything together. Our parents used to say we balanced each other out, but really, I think I just cleaned up after her. When Liam came into my life, it felt like something finally belonged only to me. He wasn't flashy or loud. He was kind, patient, grounded. He listened when I talked. He made me feel seen in a way I didn't even realize I'd been craving. We met through mutual friends at a small dinner party, and by the end of the night, I knew something was different. We spent the next 3 years building a life together, late-night takeout, road trips, inside jokes that only we understood. He proposed on a quiet evening by the lake where we'd had our first date. I thought it was perfect. Emily had been part of our lives, of course. She'd always been around, the charming, lively younger sister who could light up any room. When I introduced her to Liam, he seemed to genuinely like her. She made him laugh, and I was fine with that. I wanted the two people I loved most to get along. But slowly, subtly, something shifted. The jokes between them became private, the laughter a bit too intimate. I'd walk into the room and feel the air change, that awkward, guilty silence that lingers for just a moment too long. I remember one night vividly. We were hosting a small get-together at our apartment, just a few friends, some drinks, music in the background. I went into the kitchen to grab more ice, and when I came back, I found Emily sitting on the counter, laughing at something Liam had whispered. His hand rested on her knee, casual, familiar, and she didn't move it. The sight made my stomach twist. When they noticed me, Emily jumped down, too quickly, brushing past me with a fake smile. "You should have seen what Liam said," she laughed, her tone too bright. "He's hilarious." I smiled back, pretending not to notice. It became a pattern. Small moments that didn't quite add up but couldn't be confronted either. Late-night texts from her, innocent hangouts that didn't include me, little comments she'd make about how lucky I was to have someone like him. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. That's what Emily was good at, making people doubt their own instincts. But deep down, something in me knew. Then one evening, Liam sat me down. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I just don't love you anymore," he said quietly. Just like that. No long explanation, no tears. The words hit harder than I expected, even though part of me had been bracing for them for weeks. I stared at him, waiting for him to say more, to take it back, to something. But he didn't. He just looked at the floor, his jaw tight, his hands clenched. I wanted to scream, to demand why. I wanted him to tell me when it started, how long it had been going on, what I had done wrong. But instead, I just sat there, numb. "Okay," I heard myself say, though my voice didn't sound like mine. He nodded, relieved, maybe even grateful that I wasn't making a scene. That night, he packed a few things and left. I watched him walk out of the apartment we'd made a home, his silhouette fading into the streetlight glow. The days that followed were a blur. I moved through them like a ghost, going to work, answering messages, pretending to be fine. People said all the usual things. "You'll find someone better. Everything happens for a reason. Time heals all wounds." None of it made sense. None of it helped. What stung most wasn't even losing Liam. It was realizing that Emily had once again taken something that mattered to me. And this time, it wasn't just a toy or a dress. It was my future. 2 weeks later, I got the news. He and Emily were engaged. My mother told me over the phone, her voice shaking as if she knew how cruel it sounded. They're very happy, sweetheart. They didn't want you to hear it from someone else. I remember standing in the kitchen, the world spinning slightly around me. I stared at the spot on the counter where Liam used to make coffee every morning, where Emily once sat laughing like she belonged there. I hung up and sat down on the cold tile floor. I didn't cry. Not then. There was a strange calm that came over me, a stillness that felt almost like strength. Because in that moment, I understood something. I was done being the quiet one, the accommodating one, the one who swallowed her pain for the sake of keeping the peace. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to be the bigger person. I just wanted to be done. They didn't even have the decency to wait. They planned a quick, lavish wedding, the same venue Liam and I had booked, the same florist, even the same band. To make it worse, they used the deposits I had already paid. My parents called, voices trembling with guilt, begging me to be the bigger person and attend. When I first found out about their plans, it felt like a bad dream, one I kept hoping I would wake up from. Every detail of that wedding had once been mine. The soft gold invitations, the candlelit centerpieces, even the Lakeview terrace, where I'd imagined saying my vows. I'd spent months perfecting it, down to the last ribbon. And now it was theirs. Her wedding. His promises. My stolen fairy tale. I remember sitting on my bed, holding my phone in disbelief as my mother's hesitant voice filled the room. "They've set the date, sweetheart. It's soon." There was a pause, the kind of silence that always came before she asked me to forgive Emily yet again. "They'd like you to come. It would mean a lot to the family if you were there." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "You want me to attend their wedding? Mom, are you serious?" My voice cracked, equal parts disbelief and exhaustion. She sighed heavily, the way she always did when she thought I was being too emotional. "I know it's hard, Alexis, but it would show maturity. Everyone's saying how proud they are of you, how strong you've been. Please, don't let anger ruin your heart. Be the bigger person." That phrase, "be the bigger person," had haunted me my whole life. Whenever Emily crossed a line, I was expected to forgive her. When she took my things, my friends, my spotlight, I was told to rise above it. Now she had taken my fiancé, and somehow, I was still the one expected to show grace. I didn't want to go. God, I didn't. The idea of watching them stand together where I was supposed to stand, exchanging vows that once belonged to me, made me feel physically sick. But something inside me hardened. Some stubborn part of me refused to let them see me broken. I wouldn't give Emily the satisfaction of thinking she had destroyed me. So I said yes. I'd go. I'd smile. I'd toast to their perfect little union. The days leading up to the wedding were a blur of tension and whispered gossip. My phone buzzed constantly, messages from relatives, checking in under the guise of curiosity. "Are you really going? You're so brave. I could never do what you're doing." Their pity came wrapped in admiration, but I could see the fascination behind it. Everyone loves a tragedy, especially one that unfolds so beautifully. The morning of the wedding, I woke up before dawn. My hands trembled as I put on my makeup, carefully brushing on a calm, flawless face. I chose a deep navy dress, elegant but understated. Something that said I was composed, not competing. I pinned my hair back, slipped on my heels, and stared at my reflection. My face looked calm, but my eyes betrayed me. There was a sharpness there, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. When I arrived at the venue, the familiarity hit me like a wave. Every corner was a memory. The entryway where Liam had twirled me around during our venue tour, the balcony where we'd shared a kiss under fairy lights. Now, all of it was wrapped in someone else's story. Guests turned as I entered. Conversations dipped into hushed murmurs. Some smiled awkwardly. Others avoided eye contact altogether. I could feel their pity pressing against my skin like heat. "That's her," their eyes seemed to say. The ex. The sister. The one who got replaced. I kept my head high and walked to my seat, my heels clicking in defiance against the polished floor. Then the music started. The soft notes of the same song Liam and I had chosen for my entrance filled the air. My chest tightened, but I forced my expression to stay neutral. The doors opened, and Emily appeared. She floated down the aisle in white lace, smug and radiant, like she'd won some unspoken competition. Every eye was on her, the glowing bride, basking in the attention she'd stolen. Her smile was sweet, almost innocent to anyone who didn't know better, but I could see the glint of satisfaction beneath it. She glanced at me briefly, just once, and I knew. This wasn't just a wedding to her. It was a performance, her grand victory over me. And Liam couldn't even look at me. He stood at the altar, his hands clasped tightly, his face pale. For a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in his eyes, guilt, maybe, or regret. But it vanished as quickly as it came. He smiled when she reached him, though it looked forced, almost mechanical. As the ceremony went on, I watched from my seat, the calm mask fixed firmly in place. People probably thought I was strong, dignified even. But inside, I felt hollow. The vows, the laughter, the applause, they all sounded distant, muffled, like I was watching someone else's life from behind glass. When they kissed, the crowd erupted into cheers. Emily looked radiant, triumphant. Liam looked trapped. For a fleeting moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. I lifted my champagne glass and took a slow sip, letting the bubbles sting my throat. If anyone noticed the faint smile on my lips, they probably thought it was bittersweet acceptance. But deep down, it wasn't sadness I felt anymore. It was something sharper. Because in that moment, as the music swelled and the applause thundered around them, I realized something. They thought they had written the ending to my story. But they had no idea that I was only getting started. I had spent the entire dinner preparing for this moment, not just rehearsing my words, but my expression. I knew every camera, every eye, would be on me. I knew Emily expected me to crumble, or at least offer some half-hearted blessing that made her look like the gracious sister, and me the pathetic ex. But she didn't know what I had planned. No one did. The room had been buzzing with laughter moments before. The chandeliers cast a soft, golden glow over the tables, the kind of light that makes everything look like a fairy tale. People clinked glasses, exchanged smiles, and pretended that what had happened, what they had done, was normal, acceptable, even romantic. True love wins, someone had whispered earlier, when Emily walked in with Liam on her arm. I had wanted to laugh then too, because what kind of love is built on betrayal? I waited for the maid of honor to finish her sentimental speech about sisters finding their soulmates and love conquering all. My jaw tightened at the irony. Liam's best man followed, full of jokes about how long it took Liam to propose and how lucky he was to have found two amazing sisters. The crowd roared with laughter, oblivious to the bitterness that laced every word. And then it was my turn. The master of ceremonies called my name, and I could feel the collective intake of breath around the room. Every head turned toward me. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I picked up my champagne flute, smoothed the skirt of my navy dress, and rose from my seat. My heels clicked softly against the marble floor as I made my way toward the microphone. For a split second, I caught Emily's expression, a smile, bright and victorious, the kind she used to wear when she got away with something. She thought I was there to bless her union, to prove, once again, that I was the good sister. I took a deep breath, forcing a calm smile. To Emily and Liam, I began, my voice even and clear. They are a perfect match. A few people chuckled politely. The kind of awkward laughter that fills the silence when no one's quite sure what to expect. I could feel the tension ripple through the room. Curiosity, discomfort, maybe even a little fear. Emily tilted her head, her smile widening. She looked so smug, so sure of herself, sitting there in her perfect white dress, her hand resting possessively on Liam's arm. I could almost hear her thoughts. See? She came around. She forgave us. But she didn't see it, the quiet fire behind my smile, the way my fingers curled slightly tighter around my glass. They say the key to a marriage is honesty, I continued, my voice smooth as silk. And I was so touched by Liam's honesty that I wanted to share it with you all. The shift was immediate. You could feel the air change, a ripple of confusion, the sound of forks setting down, conversations halting mid-sentence. My mother's eyes widened slightly, her hand frozen halfway to her mouth. Emily's smile faltered, just a fraction. And Liam's reaction was instant. He went pale. Completely, utterly pale. His fingers tightened around his glass, his eyes darting to mine, then to my phone on the table. He knew. He knew. In that split second, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. I could almost hear my pulse in my ears, steady and strong. What no one else knew, what Liam had forgotten in his drunken confession, was that he'd left me a voicemail the night before. I hadn't answered his call. I couldn't bear to hear his voice. But when I listened to the message later, I knew instantly what I would do. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about truth. About finally breaking the pattern, the endless cycle of me being silenced while Emily got everything she wanted. So I saved it. I made sure it was loud, clear, undeniable. And now, standing there, facing them both, I knew this was my moment. I looked around the room, at my parents, who shifted uncomfortably in their seats, at Emily's bridesmaids, all whispering behind their hands, at Liam, who looked like he wanted to disappear. I smiled again, wider this time, and said softly, "I wanted to share it with you all." The room was utterly still. A few people exchanged puzzled looks, but I could feel the anticipation building. Even the band had gone silent. Liam swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing as he glanced at Emily, whose expression was rapidly unraveling. I could see it, the panic flickering in her eyes, the realization that something was coming she couldn't control. For the first time that night, she didn't look victorious. She looked afraid. And that was when I knew the balance had finally shifted. It wasn't about humiliating them in front of everyone, not really. It was about exposing the truth they'd tried to bury beneath expensive flowers and fake smiles. About making sure that, for once, they couldn't twist the story. Liam's lips parted, as if to say something, to beg, to warn me, maybe. But it was too late. His silence told the room everything. He knew. He knew. And I smiled, steady and unshaken, feeling the weight of years of hurt begin to lift, because in just a few seconds, everyone else in that glittering room was going to know too. The moment I pressed play, the world seemed to slow down. The faint hiss of the microphone, the soft crackle of the speakers, and then Liam's voice. That voice I had once fallen asleep to, whispering promises and future plans, now trembling, raw, and exposed for everyone to hear. It wasn't just a recording. It was the truth, his truth, unfiltered and undeniable. And as his drunken confession echoed through the grand hall, every fake smile, every stolen glance between him and Emily unraveled like thread pulled from a frayed seam. I made a mistake, his voice said again, desperate and pathetic. It's you. It's always been you. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered the nights I cried myself to sleep, the way he had avoided my gaze as he ended everything, and the image of Emily wearing the same engagement ring that had once been mine. That pity dissolved into something colder, something steady. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the clinking of cutlery, the low hum of chatter, all gone. The hall that moments ago had been filled with laughter and celebration now stood frozen. Every eye turned to me, every breath held. Emily's face was the first thing I noticed. Her perfect bridal glow had shattered. Her lips trembled, her mascara smudging as her expression twisted from disbelief to horror. She looked like she couldn't breathe, her chest rising and falling too fast, eyes darting between me and Liam, as if searching for an explanation that would undo what she'd just heard. Liam, on the other hand, looked like the ground had given way beneath him. His face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing uselessly, searching for words that wouldn't come. His hands shook as he reached for Emily, but she recoiled, jerking away from his touch. The crowd's silence felt heavier with every passing second. I stood there, calm, composed, almost detached. I could feel my pulse, slow and steady, in stark contrast to the chaos unraveling in front of me. I had imagined this moment 100 times, how it would feel, what I would say, how I would walk away, but nothing compared to the reality of it. It wasn't joy or triumph that filled me. It was peace. Cold, quiet, absolute peace. I stopped the recording, letting the silence swallow the last echo of his words. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment longer before I looked up, meeting Liam's eyes across the room. He looked at me as if seeing a ghost, or maybe a reckoning. I lifted my glass, the faint clink of crystal against the mic startling in the stillness. My voice came out clear, even not shaking, not angry, just calm. "So, to the happy couple," I said evenly. "May you have the marriage you both truly deserve." A few gasps rippled through the room, but no one moved. My words hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. I saw my parents sitting at the front table, my mother's hand covering her mouth, my father's expression unreadable. For once, they didn't tell me to be the bigger person. They just stared. I set the microphone down, the sound of it touching the stand echoing faintly in the stunned hall. I didn't need to say another word. Everything that needed to be said had already been played aloud. I turned, my heels clicking against the marble floor, the weight of 100 eyes following me. As I walked past the tables, I caught fragments of whispers, disbelief, shock, the beginning of gossip that would spread through every corner of their lives. "Did you hear what he said? Oh my God." To his ex. But I didn't look back. I didn't need to see the aftermath. That wasn't my burden anymore. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a cleansing wave. The stars shimmered above the lake, the same lake where Liam had once promised me forever. I took a deep breath, tasting freedom in the air for the first time in what felt like years. My hands trembled slightly as I set my glass down on the stone railing, watching the champagne fizz and catch the light. For the first time, I didn't feel like the one who'd been left behind. I wasn't the victim of Emily's envy or Liam's weakness anymore. I was the author of my own ending, or maybe my new beginning. Behind me, faintly through the open doors, I could hear the commotion starting. Emily's raised voice, Liam's desperate attempts to explain, chairs scraping, guests murmuring. But it all felt far away, like the noise of a world I no longer belonged to. I walked down the path lined with fairy lights, each step lighter than the last. The gravel crunched softly beneath my shoes, the scent of roses and champagne fading behind me. My reflection in the dark glass doors caught my eye for a brief moment, not broken, not bitter, just free. My head was high, my heart finally quiet. As I reached the edge of the property, I turned back once, just long enough to see the faint glow of the hall and hear the distant chaos that followed my truth. Then I smiled, not out of cruelty, but closure. They had built their marriage on lies. All I did was let the truth speak for itself. And as I walked away into the calm, open night, I realized something I hadn't before. Sometimes, peace doesn't come from forgiveness. Sometimes, it comes from finally being done.